So what am I going to talk about? First of all, I want to give a very brief overview for the ones who do not know Eurocopter about who we are, what we do. Then I was taking one of the many definitions. I think lean management has been elaborated in tons of articles. I think there is hundreds of definitions. I just wanted to share with you our definition of lean management in Eurocopter. Later I wanted to give our vision, our dream of lean in Eurocopter, and then talk about how are we going to help the cultural transformation to really happen, and what are we implementing in order to get there. So coming to Eurocopter, we are a division of EADS, and when I read this chart I was realizing that I'm proud to say that I guess all divisions of EADS are market leader in their specific segment, meaning Airbus is market leader for airplanes, Kajetan is market leader for defense and security, and Astrium for satellites, and Eurocopter is the division of EADS which is producing and maintaining helicopters. Helicopters of all different sizes, for all different kind of purposes, military and commercial. Like in many areas of the aeronautics industry, it is a growth story. Eurocopter is growing year by year. We've got currently around about 18,000 employees. 13,000 of them are based in the main hubs in France and in Germany, and 5,000 are spread all over the world in more than 30 subsidiaries. Of course, we need to go global to follow our customers. But I don't want to make a marketing show for Eurocopter, so this is it. So what is lean in Eurocopter? The definition of lean is quite simple. It's got three main elements. Lean is a management culture, and the overall target is to maximize value. When we speak about maximizing value, it's maximizing value for the customer, and this will automatically lead to maximization of the value of the company. Lean is simple. When I started my job, my boss gave me a disc, and it was a song or the album from Jim Morrison, and it was called "Keep It Simple." And he's perfectly right. Lean is simple, so we're trying to find simple solutions to ease our life. Simple solutions to reduce the complexity of the procedures in an organization. And the heart of all lean is that the customer is in the center of attraction, meaning whatever you do needs to generate customer value. And everything that does not generate customer value is waste. It doesn't help the organization in the long term. So lean is searching for the increase of customer value on an ongoing basis. And lean is questioning every day, is what I do creating customer value, or are there elements in my tasks which are not doing so? That's it. It's not so simple, but if you reduce it, the customer comes first, keep it simple, and focus on value, then you've got it. What does this mean for Eurocopter? And now I'm coming to the situation that Eurocopter uses lean as the one and only vehicle to keep or to adapt the company on a regular basis. We are looking, as you said, the market is changing on a daily basis. We have And that's interesting. Eurocopter is acting in an oligopoly, meaning there are limited competitors, but the competitors are getting stronger. New kids are coming every day to the block, and the existing players need to protect their market share. The field is getting more and more competitive, and I think it's just they're one step before the airplane industry, because in the airplane industry it's a very similar situation. The only difference is that the market is more competitive on the helicopter business than in airplanes. And Eurocopter has given out the key success factor that needs to be driven with lean, and that is speed. If we are not agile, and if we're not dynamic, adjusting our philosophy, exactly what you say, we are going to fail. So we want to engage everybody to accelerate our processes along the value stream. We want to increase the agility of the organization and to reduce the time to market. And lean is the vehicle, and the only vehicle. There is no plan B. So the company is going to become a lean company. What does this mean? In Eurocopter, we are striving for 3 major elements. We want everybody in the organization to be willing, to be able to, and to be allowed to change. So what Georg said, we are putting the responsibility to everybody in the organization to change for customer value. So it's a human-centered system. Our individuals drive the change of the organization. Everybody is responsible and empowered to do so. What we're giving is the direction. So we're asking individuals to drive change. The only thing we say, we give you a direction. Every change you are launching and you're initiating needs to follow 2 purposes. Either it needs to help us create flow, and creating flow is not that I want to flow materials or whatever. Creating flow means that I do not want to interrupt value creation. So there mustn't be a waiting or pause in the value creation. So value flows uninterrupted along the value stream. And if this improvement doesn't help to create flow, it needs to help us to do things right the first time, and not to have loops over and over again in order to get it correct at the end, but to do things right the first time. So we are empowering our teams to do 2 things: to change, either to create flow or to do things right the first time. As a basis of improvement, as a basis of change, we need to define certain standards. So we see what is it that doesn't work, because if you don't have a platform somewhere, it's impossible to improve, because you're jumping off from different levels all day long. So the basis of our lean system is standardization and visualization, and the objective is the excellence. If you're looking all over the world, you will see similar elements in different shapes. You will see spider webs or temples, or you will see, I saw even a soccer ball one. So the lean systems of the companies look very different, but they're focusing all mainly on the same things: value creation, quality, the engagement of everybody, and the standardization. In the end, these are the main elements. And now I would say this is the macro level Georg was talking about. If we're now trying to communicate to our employees, and I show this picture, they will tell me, you know what? That's a very fancy consulting slide, but it will not help me change. And I think they're a bit right. So what we have defined are the key deployment enablers which are going to help us get there. And the key deployment enablers are the following. We want to create the culture of continuous improvement. That's the cultural element where I'm going to dig deeper in a second. We want to reduce the complexity of our products. I don't know if you're aware, but the aeronautic industry is a highly regulated industry, and the complexity of our products, also due to the fact that they are normally the big babies of the customers, the complexity is growing every day. So the objective is to reduce the complexity of products. Another objective is to optimize the processes. And the other one is to create the foundations, meaning to develop corporate standards. That's mainly due to the fact that we're such an international and diverse organization that we're searching for having things in common. Because if you have companies which were growing together over a few years, then you need to have a common element. You could draw the culture around all this because all this is driven by a cultural transformation. The cultural transformation is the heart of our lean deployment strategy. And we have a definition of what is lean culture. And lean culture we describe as the belief of every individual and they are acting according to the 12 Kaizen states of mind. So we will be a lean organization if everybody in the organization has in his or her DNA these 12 Kaizen states of mind. Meaning, if everybody is constantly unhappy with the status quo, so everybody wants to change on a day-to-day basis, nobody talks about why we cannot do things. Everybody speaks about how we can make it happen. If we're not having long deployment plans and strategies and things like this, but people are proactive, changing immediately. If people say, okay, let's grasp 60% now, and we'll see how we can tackle the 40% which are remaining. If people, and that has something to do with pride, if people lose their pride when it comes to the business world, because when you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to improve, and you can correct the mistake immediately. If people start thinking about the root cause before shooting for a solution, if people talk about team, meaning take the ideas of 10 rather than waiting for the wise man coming along. If people have this trial and error attitude, if people measure, copy what they've done, and if people have understood that the first change is just the start of the next one. In the end, what we're doing, or what we're trying to achieve, is to have lots of little entrepreneurs which are acting in the company just as they would act with their own money and just as they would act in their own house. Because lean is a very natural thing. Every human being that's in a competitive situation will always act according to lean principles. If you're looking at tennis players, if you're looking at soccer players, they're all acting in a completely lean spirit, trying to eliminate everything that doesn't get them closer towards their target. So this is what we want to achieve. And the question is, who can make this happen? Because I cannot talk to 18,000 people of Eurocopter. I cannot tell 18,000 people, you need to do this, and then they have forgotten the first one when I'm ending at the last one. So how can we make this really happen? And we can only make this happen if it's driven by the management of an organization. So we needed to work. You're welcome. We needed to work on the management behaviors which we're trying to change. So we have defined a management model for Eurocopter with the objective to sustain the change which we have implemented and to see the first step just as the next one in order to enter into a continuous improvement mode. The model is one thing, and I will go into more details on the model. The model is one thing, but at the same time, just highlighting a model doesn't help. You need to embed this model in all the HR processes, meaning managers need to understand if they're not acting according to the desired lean behaviors, if they're not acting according to this model, they will not be selected. They will not be trained to continue in this path. They will in the end not be promoted, and the recognition in the organization is not going to be theirs. So the embedding of the leadership competences which are driving lean behavior in the organization are embedded in the human resource processes to select, to promote, to recognize. At the same time, and this is for the transition period, because we want to be a lean company. When we're a lean company, once you're there, you don't need a lean network. But until you're there, it's a lot of hard work, and you need a network of people which are already going into this direction, which is helping and coaching managers to get there. And you also need to have an academy or a training element which is giving the basics to management. So what is the Eurocopter management model? As I said in the definition, it's all about customer. Everything we do is supposed to create value for the customer. So of course, our managers need to focus on customer. It's, as Georg said, all about giving the direction. As a leader, you need to give the direction to your team so they know that what they are striving for. It's about the empowerment of the team. So allow your people to do things to go towards the direction. It's about the engagement with the teams. So going to the teams, talking to the people, acting as a coach. And it's about accepting, respecting, and optimizing the standards you have in an organization. I want to give you now some tools which we use in order to drive these behaviors, because these behaviors you can write on hundreds of PowerPoint charts and the people will still not do it. So what you need to do is you need to give them some things that are driving them towards such a behavior. And in order to focus on customer, for the time being, that doesn't mean that this is going to change, for the time being we are using 3 tools. In big organizations like Eurocopter or other big companies, you have a tendency to think in departments. So procurement is optimizing procurement processes, and engineering is organizing engineering processes, etc. We have implemented some golden rules which stop people from acting like this. The first one, all lean transformations in Eurocopter are defined by the customer. That can be the internal customer, so the customer of an internal business function. For example, the operational manager is the internal customer of finance and HR, but that can also be the external customer. So, number one, what we are forcing the organization to do is we do an end-to-end value stream map. So we are looking at the process steps from customer sheet until delivery, and we will highlight some issues. We said before we want to reduce the time to market. This is exactly what is reflecting the time to market. And what we're looking at, what is hindering us at the moment to be faster to the market. So you identify issues doing this in all different areas of the business, and these areas of the business are then not allowed to drive and define their own transformation priorities, but they are defined by a multifunctional team which was doing an end-to-end value stream map. That might not be the local optimum for an engineering organization, but it's the best for our customers. So, I was talking about the pride. It's a hell of a job to convince a manager that not his priority counts, but that the priority is given by the customer. And he just needs to apply. The same thing for the business functions and business areas which are outside the end-to-end value stream. You have supporting processes which you do not identify as a critical point during your end-to-end value stream map. And also for these areas, we have defined a simple step approach, 7-step approach, that defines the priority. The first step these business functions have to do, they have to define who are their customers. And it sounds very easy, but if you're asking some people in the business, who's your customer and what are you delivering to this customer? These people are really struggling to figure out who it is and what they supply. The next step is, what is the real customer need? What does he really want from me? And then you can start thinking, okay, what do I have in place in order to fulfill the needs? And then we're asking, these are workshops. You have to imagine the customers and the suppliers come together, and the customers are defining how process performance is supposed to be measured. So it's not the engineering department that is defining its dashboard. It's the customer of a sub-process which is defining what is it that defines your process performance. Once this is done, the customer, the internal customer, defines, I want you to work on this, and I'm expecting these results. And that is the trigger for the transformation. And of course, this 7-step approach you do every once in a while. But afterwards you need to have a simple tool in place which we call customer supplier feedback loops, which is a very common tool when you're looking at the outside world, but it's very uncommon when you're looking at the inside world. So we're talking about customer supplier feedback loops between HR and finance, or between engineering and operations. And this is then the trigger for the continuous improvement activities. And these are just 3 tools, the 3 tools we're using for the time being in the stage where we are at the moment, which are helping us to force the organization thinking customer as the cultural change. And then there are tools or activities we're launching that help make the difference between a manager and a leader. Because as Georg mentioned, we don't want to have managers in our organization, but we want to have leaders. And I'm very happy that you were speaking about going and flying to the Mars, because I've got the moon. We are developing systems that help managers to act as a leader. And I think in the left side you see very much what we mean when we want to create a vision. It's not just the macro level, which is the dream of a manager. In your case, it was the flying to the Mars. In John F. Kennedy's case, it was, I want to have a man on the moon. And this dream then needs to go down, because it needs to be cascaded. It needs to be first, it needs to be a statement. And then, and that is the stairs you were mentioning in the end, we need to show what would this mean for our processes. So we have a Eurocopter vision. I'm glad to say that we have a Eurocopter vision. And now it's one of the five, maybe. Yeah, well, you're here. So we have a Eurocopter vision, and the objective is now to cascade this Eurocopter vision, but then to make a manager or a leader of a sub-directorate define also the process. What would this mean later for our processes? And what we provide to the managers is help to do this together with his team. So in the end, people start giving direction. You know, the first element of our leadership competences was focus on customer. The second was give direction. So to help managers give direction, we're using tools like this. To help managers not just to tell people what to do, but more often to ask, what can I do for you? Which is a typical lean behavior. We're implementing visual team management. I think it's a common practice in all the enterprises which are going towards lean. But it's a big cultural change system because it makes managers act differently. Trying to get teams together in order to get into the dialogue on specific indicators. In order to give the freedom to a manager to ask, what can I do for you? Also, unfortunately, a change in management that needs to be driven over and over again is that managers are very often trying to manage via email and telephone. We're forcing management to do specific routines, to apply specific routines that are pushing them to go down to the floor. Down to the floor doesn't mean necessarily to go down, to go into the hangar. It can also be to go into the office of your employees and have a chat with them. And I realized during many transformations that lots of managers have difficulties with this because they don't see their added value. They say, okay, and then I'm going down, and what do? I just shake hands, or how shall I do that? And so we give them a task. It's not so much that they're fulfilling the task, but we give them a task so they've got a reason. So they are getting more into their comfort zone. And we force them to do this regularly in order to ensure proximity of the manager. So I think these are just some small examples of what we in Eurocopter try to do in order to drive a managerial change that will, in the end, change the way individuals are acting, stronger towards lean behaviors. Let me conclude. It's very difficult to extract one element out of a lean system. It's a mixture of lots of things, and one of the elements is the cultural change. But only culture doesn't help, and only process re-engineering doesn't help either. So it's very difficult to extract one element and elaborate only on one. if you don't change the way managers act and managers behave, it is impossible to change the culture of a company. It all comes with the manager who is supposed to become a leader. So when you want to change the culture in a company, change the behavior of managers. And change in leadership can only be achieved when you link it to pragmatic things, to things managers can grasp, to something where they can say, okay, I've got an added value. Because very often it's not just the employee who is asking, what's in for me? It's also the managers we're trying to convince to apply something which are asking, okay, what's in for me? So make it as pragmatic as possible and try to make it, to dose it. That means not to drown them with too many things at the same time, but to set the right triggers that lead to a specific management behavior. This is what I want to talk to you later, and I'm now looking forwards because I'm standing between the coffee and you. So I'm going to get out of the way.
So it's still working. Okay, thank you, Kajetan. I think now it's good to have a refreshment break. Welcome you, but I think my colleague do this afterwards with the right words. I just want to ask you to put your names in the workshops you want to attend this afternoon, that we have a little overview how many people are in which workshop. Well, to have a short first conclusion from my side, it was a lot of brain food this morning for me, and brain food means a lot of different aspects of what is meant by change management and cultural change, and why lean management could be part of, let me say, answer to all the questions we have now in the difficulty of companies with a more complexity and more speed also. So a lot of things that are difficult to manage. This is one of the things I heard this morning, that managers have more and more difficulties to do their job if they don't move to be leaders, even if it's not possible that they can predict what is happening tomorrow. And this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges for leaders, that they can give direction without predict the future. So also to cope with this kind of, let me say, ambiguity, that it's not possible to predict the future, but to give what you said, direction to the people, that they know what they have to do, how to behave. I think this is one of the challenges, and maybe that we have to talk about this more, because leadership was not the focus of our topics we put in our day-to-day, but this was one insight for me, that maybe in future it's more important also to talk about leadership in change management. So maybe this is one thing we have to discuss, to do the Change Forum next year or in 2 years with this focus. But now I invite you for the refreshment break, quarter of an hour. Half an hour? We have the time, half an hour?
Quarter of an hour, 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay. So this was a smart, simple deal. 20 minutes refreshment break. See you later in 20 minutes, and then we continue with François Dupuis. Thank you.